So, welcome to the rabbit hole, ladies, where we never stay on topic. We pick a, we never stay there. Um, so I was watching that show. I posted it in the regular group about the witches and like the history of the witches, and they were really going into detail about the witch trials and stuff. And I was like, we should talk about this considering it's freaking spooky season. It's spooky season. And I have gone down the rabbit hole with the whole witch thing and like where it came from and why and all of this stuff because it so directly impacts the way that women were treated throughout history. And it started because one man wrote a book about how women were weak. Now, I'm gonna add a little cursor to this if for anybody else that listens in. This is not an attempt to bash men now. We all know that men are good now, right? We all know that you did not write the book. We all know. But this man that did write this book back in history, this is just the way it was. So we're going to state some facts about what happened with witches and what happened with women and what happened with men. And I find it very interesting in how it plays into today's society because it still does. The events that happened back then led our way to a lot of what we experience now. And a lot of women still carry that witch wound, the witch wound, air quotes, if I decided to put this in a podcast. It stems from that of us not wanting to be seen, not wanting to be heard, being afraid that we're going to get exonerated. How exonerated is that what it is? For being,
Exonerated?
yeah, for being who we are and allowing like the true us to come out, especially if you are into healing work or if you are into energy work or you are intuitive and you're doing that sort of work, any of that, witch wound, right? We not a lot of us women don't step into that sort of thing because we've generations it's built into us that we don't. You're not supposed to. That's unacceptable. All of that. So it's like this generation, I feel like, is really stepping into the wake up time of that's bullshit. Bullshit, right? And it is a lot of it is just the way society has been built, and society has been built upon a specific model of the way that the world is supposed to operate, and women and kids and everything else. So as I was watching the show, they were talking about how the whole thing started. The whole thing started because two little girls in a pastor's house started coming down with symptoms. And nobody, from what I've watched so far, I haven't gotten to watch the whole thing, but from what I've watched so far, nobody really knows exactly what it was, if they were just pulling legs, if they were actually ill, if this was like a psychotic breakdown or episode. But they had a doctor come in and the doctor examined them and said, I can't fix this, so therefore it must be evil because that is how things were back then. This is the work of the devil. And so the finger pointing started, and of course, women were getting blamed. And I found it interesting too that it wasn't all women. There were men that were executed during this for being a witch as well. It wasn't all women. It became women mainly later on during the course of that because of the book that was started, um, or the book that was written. And so it started with the two girls, and then the first one to actually get accused was a colored woman, and her name was Tituba, I believe. She was the first one to ever have to go through any of this. And they actually allowed in spectral evidence into the courts, which is literally people saying, well, I had a premonition, or I had a feeling, or I had X, Y, and Z as actual concrete evidence during these trials. And which of course did not sit well with me at all. It actually really, I was like, ooh, yeah, okay. But the thing is that I didn't know about these witch trials is that many of the people, like the community, didn't agree with what was happening at all. They questioned everything. They didn't think a lot of things were right. But back in those days, when you had a priest or a pastor or some man of, authority, they listened to that person. And so as they were questioning all of these hangings, right? Because there was, I think, like 9 hangings within like a couple of days with this. When they started questioning all of this stuff, the guy that was there, he said, I wish I would have wrote down names. But he said, no, it's okay. It's okay to do this. It is okay to let us go through with this because this is what God would want. And so the community was like, all right, I guess we go through with it. And then that just started a chain reaction. And it started in one little spot. And then this whole witch hunt just spread, right? It spread everywhere. And so once it got to a certain point, people started like reading this book that I think was published years before. I'm not positive, but from what I was looking at the dates, because the witch trials is 1692, this book was published in like 1590 something. So I mean, it was like way before, but people, I don't know, I kind of got a little hairy in there. I was taking care of kids as I was watching this. But this book stated that women are weak. Women are the one that fornicate with the devil. There's a reason why the devil grasps on to women, right? And that essentially the ones that dabble in the healing work and the herbalism and all of that stuff, those are the ones that have the magical powers essentially to sell their soul to the devil and make everybody sick and change the weather and do all of these things. And so I was sitting and I was thinking about this, and women have been the staple for millennia before this for being healers, for being able to tap into the intuition. There are so many cultures that believe that by doing certain things, you could help change the weather for the good. Like there was a lot of really good things. Women were seers, women were the people that everybody went to. They always had a wise elder, and it was a woman, usually. That was their seer, their premonition person, their everything. And I found it very interesting about how the evolution over time that those things started becoming fearful. And it was a man that wrote this, right? And I'm trying to like kind of tiptoe and be decent about what I am saying. However, it does irritate me that I've thought for years and years and years that the reason why women were put where they were was because there needed to be control over that because there was fear. I do feel like a long time ago, religion was started as a way to police, right? There was no policing back in them days. The church is what kept everybody together. So I feel like that was when the control started over the people. That was like the downfall of women. That was the downfall of healing. And then the sickness started. Once the healers were not able to do their thing, sickness started. And then more sickness started. And then more sickness started. And the art of healing was lost completely. And you can see it as you trace history, how much plagues or how many plagues and how many viruses and all this stuff started to erupt everywhere the minute that women were turned into witches and not healers. I feel like our ancient cultures really were onto something. And it's a lost art because it ended up being feared. And so our generation now is kind of stepping back into this, and women are, and men are really coming back into their own and waking up. And I feel like I'm just like spewing all of this stuff right now, but it kind of all is crazy and coming together. I was talking to Kim about this, having flashes as we were talking about what's coming in the future and people waking up. And it had started because I had seen a thing about CVS closing all of their pharmacies and then Walgreens being the next because they're not getting enough kickbacks from the medical companies to stay afloat. And that blew my mind considering that they are so understaffed and so busy all the time that they are not making enough money. Like
Right?
it's a fight right now for just in general to get a medication filled on time, let alone if it's something that you absolutely have to have, like you can't skip a day or it's life saving or whatever. They're so understaffed and busy, you can't get your medications. Now, if they start closing down all the CVSs and the Walgreens, those are staples in the community, right? That's where most people go. What are people going to do when they can't get their medications?
They'll have to go to holistic healers
Right. And so,
or learn how to heal themselves too, which is very important.
right. It's going to come back to, I feel like whole body healing is what's going to happen. And I had these premonitions or visions or whatever the hell you want to say of having actual clinics like that where you go and you get whole body healing. This would be led by like a licensed physician that is in that area. And then you have your energy workers, and then you have your intuitives, and you have your herbalists, and you kind of put together this whole body plan. And I feel like there's going to be centers popping up around this because A, people are going to have no freaking choice, right? B, people are going to start waking up to seeing what medicine is doing to us because it's not from a great place anymore. I don't feel there's a gray area. There's always a gray area with this, right? Medicine can save lives, but medicine can also take lives, right? And when we're coming from the money aspect of it, it's not a great thing,
No, it's a business.
right?
It's designed to keep you sick.
Right. And so, with so many people waking up, I really feel like this is kind of like where we're going to be going. And so, the witches, what we call witches, are actually healers. That's what they used to do. And so the witches are waking back up. And I find this amazing and incredible in seeing the chain of events of what is happening. Like, I don't think, they gave the term witch such an ugly persona because it was scary. So throughout history, they started changing the way the witch looked, what they did. They put hexes on people and spells on people when the term witch used to be highly, it was highly regarded, right? You
Right?
want somebody like that to heal, to do good, to get magic, air quotes again. You did all those things. And then once it became feared, even the word hag, old hag, was not meant to be a bitter thing. It was not meant to be derogatory. It actually, when you were called an old hag, centuries ago, it actually meant that you were the old wise woman. That's what that term meant. Hmm. Or
That's cool.
the crone also is not the image you get in your head of like this old spinstress sitting out in the woods, right? The crone was the medicine woman. The crone was originally a medicine woman, the woman that knew everything, that could see, that all of that. It was a really beautiful term. And all of those things throughout history have been stolen and remade into something nasty and something scary. And I hate to say it, a lot of organized religion did that. Now, do I think that the people nowadays did that? Absolutely not. So I don't want people to get like up in an uproar because there's more I'll talk about. But back then, way back when, because there was no control over anything and people were scared and they had no scientific evidence for anything and all this stuff, right? What did they have other than a book to go off of? A book,
Right.
somebody of stature, of education, right? That's what they had to go off of. And so it was a chain reaction. And people were killed, innocent people were killed, people were burned at the stake. And I feel that with this upcoming year that's coming up, we are in a modern day witch hunt for people being held accountable and probably a lot of innocent people being accountable for stuff. Just if you look at it about all the finger pointing that we've had recently.
Well, not to interrupt you, but even look like with Barbara O'Neill, right? She is a naturopathy, and she can't even live in her own country. They kicked her out because she's showing people how to treat themselves naturally.
Yeah. Mhm.
They went after her, so that's scary.
Right. It is scary because there's no money in it. There's
Right.
people healing themselves. And it's extraordinary how our ancient people knew this ability. They were tapped into this ability that the mind can. They knew about the energetic work. They knew about the moon cycles and when to do stuff. They knew about how the whole body connects, the mind, body, soul. They knew all of this stuff and they used it all the time. And their people were so freaking advanced and civil, right? And everybody got along, and they knew the animals were onto something. Our freaking animals are smarter than us. I am,
Yeah.
what they are. They tune into stuff and have the ability to self heal and do things way before we ever do because we trust a white coat. And that is exactly what happened back during the witch trials. We trusted a white coat.
Yeah,
Yes.
that's true.
Uh-huh. It's we're doing a repeat right now, just modern day.
Yeah, it's scary. It's scary
Yep.
a little bit. I don't really believe that that there is a what do you call it? A shortage of drugs, right? I think we're just being told that. I think a lot of us are just getting messed with because these medications, especially if you've been on them for a while, you can't just stop taking them. You're going to have some serious consequences to that. It can make you feel very, very sick. So, yeah, I think that we're just kind of getting toyed with here a little bit. But yeah, I think the natural healing route for for as long as I can remember, even like my parents, that's woo-woo. Why would you do that? Go to a doctor. Why would you take an herb? Where when my grandmother was young, growing up on a farm, that's what you did because you couldn't get to a doctor. You were living in the middle of nowhere. You had a horse and buggy. I mean, believe it or not, that wasn't that long ago before people had a vehicle to just get wherever they wanted. She
Right.
had a sleigh in her garage. That used to be her family's that they used in the winter, a sleigh.
Mhm.
And not just for shits and giggles. It was like actually to get around.
Right.
And so you couldn't just go do whatever. So you did have all these like old wives remedies, right? And I remember being a little girl and her coming over and I being so sick and her being like, okay, we're gonna try this, and thinking that was strange, right? Because it wasn't a pill, it wasn't some kind of
Right.
um, pink colored
Goo.
goob that you had to get down. You know what I'm talking about? But yeah, I mean, even today, if I would go to my parents and say, geez, if you tried A, B, and C with herbs, you could get off all of your medications. They'd look at me and say I was nuts. There's no way they would even consider doing that.
Right. And they say too that herbalism is mind over matter, right? It's a placebo effect, whether you believe or not. It's the same thing with medication.
Right,
Believe
right,
that they work, right? So we take them, and of course, well, we think they probably work better than what they do because we think that they're going to help us. But it's that same thing with disbelieving that an herbal medication has no place in treating you because it's not strong enough. It's not a chemical. It's not, all this different stuff. Well, of course, it's not going to necessarily help you because you already have the mindset, and your mind controls so much. You can literally think yourself into having a bad reaction to an actual medication. You can
Hmm.
think yourself into this. And they've shown that with the placebo effects with the test
Right.
studies on this stuff.
Biology of belief. If you believe it, yeah, you can change your DNA.
Right. And so how amazing would it be? Well, the thoughts, the feeling, the connection between all of this stuff and the believing and the energetic work and what they're putting into their bodies, how amazing that would be instead of taking a pill and not dealing with it's a band-aid. The shit that we have going on in our bodies, some of it is meant to happen. It's part of our path, right? We are actually sick sometimes, but there's a lot of it we take on ourselves, and it's pre-planned, it's predestined, it's in our charts. And when we do the healing work alongside herbal medicine, you actually fix yourself long term. It's just society really wants to have a quick fix. And I need this.
Right.
I have to have this. And that's what we've been taught. And it's money. It's money. A lot of it is
Right. Well, herbs are meant to support you,
right.
right? So, I mean, it stimulates your own immune system to do what it needs to do.
Hmm.
Where these drugs sometimes have it's like a short-term fix. You don't have to wait as long to feel better, but the long-term consequences can be pretty big.
Right. Yeah, absolutely. And not all herbs are safe just to willy-nilly take. They're not.
Right. Yeah. You can't just be pumping yourself full of herbs.
You have to know, be careful with certain things. And there's a time and a place for actual medication. So they're not saying anything like that either. But you do have to be careful with both. But I do feel like our little witchy ancestors were freaking on to something, and we have a lot
Sure.
to learn from them. So much to learn. And I feel like I'm so blessed to be able to live in this time of people waking up and understanding this and seeing it that, oh, maybe there is something to all of this because we've been having an explosion of it. Coming into this 9 year, we're going to see it even more. It's going to get crazy, I think, with it. People are whistleblowing like crazy. The 9 year is going to be the one of, because it carries a five energy to 2025. The five energy is all about if you built the prison, you can burn it down. That is the whistleblower. That is, I feel like, the people deconstructing and saying no more, right? I think that's
Right.
it's coming. We can feel it. Everybody's talking about being spiritually tired and all of this stuff. It's because we know what's coming, right? It's going to get worse before it gets better. And I feel like because all of this herbalism and stuff like that is popping up, and we're talking about the witches and stuff, that is why it's kind of important for us to all get our shit straight now. Because we are moving towards whole body healing. We are moving back into being little witchy people. We had our ancestors go and burn at the stake for trying to help people. Yep,
Yep.
we certainly did. They were good people burning at the stake. And so I kind of carry that pride with me a little bit, knowing that that's still
Right.
in.
Well, we still have that going on today. Like I said, even with Barbara O'Neill, and there's other doctors too that have popped up and said, "Hey, something's not right here,"
Right,
or spoke up against something that they knew was wrong that has been given to the public, and they've lost their license, they've lost their careers,
right,
they've been ostracized, um, they've been lied about, bullied. They might not be burned at the stake, but they lose everything they have for standing up and saying something about it. Or they're labeled as, they're quacks, they're crazy, don't listen to them, and it's really scary for anybody, I think, in that community to stand up and say anything if they don't believe, what they're doing is right.
right. And it is terrifying, like the why behind it. Why are they? this happen to them? What are we not seeing? What do they not want us to know? Right?
Right.
This is the reasoning behind all of this. And that's, I think, even with everything going on right now in the world, it's terrifying because there's so many conspiracy theories that are flying around. It's terrifying to actually, like you said, Kim, see the truth. What is the truth? Right? Nobody even knows anymore.
Right. Nobody knows anymore. We've been lied to so much with a little bit of truth stuck in there,
Right?
And so it's really hard to believe. And I think a lot of people have that cognitive dissonance, I'm probably saying it wrong, where it's so scary to see what you're seeing that it's much easier just to pretend that it's not happening,
Yeah.
right? Because it blows everything out of the water that you've ever believed your entire life,
Yeah.
and that's terrifying.
This thing, we're going through such a huge mass shift in things. It literally is like a landslide that I feel is going to be happening because we're talking about the weather and the things that happen in North Carolina and how, God, my heart goes out to them. Oh my God, right? We're seeing all of this stuff and all of these things coming to light. And I had seen a post the other day, somebody had posted of all the hurricanes and all the weather and like blah, 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 blah. God, Jesus is coming back. Okay. We are following along with some of what is in the Bible, right? Now, I believe that a lot of the things in the Bible overlaps the spiritual world, right? Absolutely. It's just a matter of interpretation. So I
Right.
don't want you to be like, woo, I believe in a God. I believe in all of that. I do feel like the underlying part of that, though, if you look at it from the spiritual world, is that God is returning, is saying that we are coming back to ourselves. We are coming back to that healing stuff. We are coming back to love. We are coming back to what's got to get tore down first, right? There's there's a lot of underlying stuff because God is all loving. God's loves everybody. I feel like that's kind of where we're going to, but stuff's got to get tore down first. And that's exactly kind of what the Bible was saying, except having like an actual
Well,
realistic.
I think this is revelation, meaning that you're going to start seeing things behind the curtain,
Yes.
right? Like it's not, I don't think it's going to be like Armageddon is going to be this, you know, brimstone shit burning down in a physical sense, right? Necessarily. I mean, yes, we're having lots of storms and that kind of stuff, but I mean, I think what's going to get burned down is the illusion that has been built over decades and decades and decades.
Hmm.
And the truth is going to come out and it's going to be scary, but I think it's also going to start something completely new.
Yep. That's exactly it. I don't think it's the end of the world. I
Right.
don't think that we're not going to be able to live our lives, right? We're going to be
It's just
able
going
to,
to be the end of the world as we know it.
right?
Right.
Scary, right? Like school systems, there's stuff with the school systems. This has been happening for a while. If you follow it energetically, this stuff that's been happening in the schools, it's kind of like I feel almost a warning. Something's got to change, right? This usually when something needs to change, the universe will keep throwing bad shit at you and make it scarier and scarier and scarier until it actually happens, right? This needs to change, even in our personal lives. It will keep throwing stuff at you until you
Yes.
get it,
It's
right?
like, listen.
And so we're seeing that out in the real world, and especially in this 8 and 9 year, this is a surrender. It is the unveiling. It is what is no longer needed is getting evacuated. That comes to health. That comes to the way we live life. That comes to money. That comes to government. That comes to belief systems.
Our
It comes to
food, everything.
our food. All of it is tied in. And when we move into this 9 energy year on January 1st, this is the evacuation time. Now, people in the spiritual world are like, oh, it's a good thing. It's love and light. Everything happens for a reason. Absolutely, I believe that. Does it suck in the process? Fuck yeah.
Yeah.
It Yes,
You
I'm
can
sorry.
sparkle that turd up with as much love and light as you want. It's still gonna be kind of a turd.
Yeah. It's, the stuff that I've been feeling and I've been seeing in my cards and things like that. I'm like, oh, yeah, it's probably not a bad idea to like go buy toilet paper, right? I'm not saying go buy a whole freaking thing of it, a store of it, but we do have strikes coming. We do have
Right. At least buy something to hose your ass down, Like you got to get one of those little,
a bidet, people.
yeah,
Go get a bidet. Please go get a bidet. It is selfish to buy all of the toilet paper,
right.
right?
Right. Don't be leaving people without anything but scraps.
But we do have strikes coming up. We do have stuff that is going to kind of rock our world a little bit. Like, be prepared a little bit. This isn't doomsday, but stuff's not going to
Be
be,
smart.
yeah, be smart. It's not going to be super
Be
easy.
prepared.
We're already living in an economical time where it's insane, right? We're already struggling. And
Right.
so now, if we're talking about the witchy and the healer stuff, all the witchies coming up, people are going to be turning more to this than ever
Well,
because
we're in a greater depression than what we were in the 1920s and 30s, right?
we
And
are.
so, and people don't even realize it because they're so glued to their phone and they're so, they just keep doing what they're doing, right?
Because
And no
have
clue
all
about
this,
what's actually happening.
the 20s and 30s, they didn't have anything, right?
Right.
You think of, sorry, you think of them having to or like not having a stove, or they didn't have much, being dirty.
Right. You
Every,
had rations. I remember my grandma talking about rations.
yeah,
And she was a hoarder. I mean, she was very wealthy, very well off as an adult, right? But I mean, like I said, she grew up on a farm, didn't have much, went through the depression. It was awful, it was scary. And so, I mean, she kept living like that. It just was stuck in her to be like, okay, let's accumulate enough things so that if this happens again, I'm not screwed, right? And as a kid, I thought she was nuts. I
and
was
here,
like, why are we have a whole room full of toilet paper and Kleenex?
and here we are.
Like what is going on here? And like the canned goods,
Yeah,
she just had an abundance of canned goods that she was never going to get through in a lifetime. But it was like, if the shit hits the fan, I am prepared. Everybody come to grandma's house.
right.
She was smart about it.
Yeah,
But yeah, I think you're right. There's a lot of things that are going to be happening here, and you probably should be a little prepared for it. Start learning how to heal yourself because you can't depend on Big Pharma to help you out anymore. Like you probably shouldn't have to begin with. There's always a catch with it. It's always too good to be true. Like, hey, you see the commercials. Do you, do you have a twitching eye? Well, here's a drug for it. But by the way, you're going to bleed out your butt. You might, you might have a seizure. You might never sleep again.
right.
But it's great. It's wonderful. Just go to your doctor, call them up, tell them you need this drug because your eye is a little twitchy instead of getting to the source of why your eye is twitching in the first
Probably
place.
high cortisol levels.
Right.
Your eyes twitch from high cortisol levels and stress. Yes.
Let's take a drug that's going to make you have more symptoms. And then we're going to give you another drug to deal with those symptoms and so on and so forth. So before you know it, you are in debt to these drugs, right? Because now you're working to pay for these medications that are expensive.
Yeah, and don't get me
And then
started
you don't even, what's that?
on insurance.
Oh yeah, it's
Oh,
awful.
oh
It's
my
awful.
God.
So it's just kind of like a dog chasing its tail all the time. You're you're working to be able to pay for the medications that keep you just well enough to go to work to pay for the medications, but you're still not feeling good. You still feel like shit.
Right. Yeah, and why do they not want us to deal with it as a whole body? Like, what is it with that? Why do we get shot out to all these specialists, right?
Because
And together.
there's no money and actually healing somebody. And my mom actually had a relative who was a doctor. In fact, he delivered me. He was our family doctor up until he retired. And he had said the demise of the medical industry was when you started having all these specialized doctors because nobody's communicating, right? And they're not with you from the time you're born till the time that you die, right? So they're not really looking at your whole chart. They're not really looking at your whole background. Even though it's available to them, they're not they're not going to spend the time. You're one of many, right? And so it's not like this small community doctor that used to show up to your house if your kids were sick. It's not the same thing at all. It's all about money. You have to show up to the doctor's office. You're waiting in the waiting room longer than you are seeing the actual doctor, right? You've told at least three different people why you're there
Mhm.
in depth, and yet they're still not understanding why you're there.
Yeah.
You know, it's frustrating. It's so frustrating. You walk in and you say something to them about like, hey, I've got this going on. And they say, well, here, try this pill or that pill. And if you say, I don't want to try that, can we look into this further and find out what the cause is? And they tell you, well, then I guess you don't want to get better.
Yes, absolutely. I agree with that. And you as you were talking about that, even those old time doctors that used to go around house to house, many of them used old wives' tales remedies.
Yes, they did. They did. And the other thing too, I want to bring up, the reason why Mayo Clinic is the clinic to go to is because all these doctors are working there together and they do have to sit together and communicate. They have to. That's why they're able to get down to the bottom of something. Anywhere else that you go to that doesn't have that kind of a plan, you're going from one doctor to the next. I had a back surgery that I did not probably need because I went to the neurologist and the neurologist said, yes, or the neurosurgeon, yes, you do have a bulging disc and yes, there's a bone deformity there. But nobody addressed the fact that my hips are messed up. So I would have had to seen a totally different doctor for that. And even when I would go in there and say to him, geez, I feel like I'm being squeezed. Why is this? I don't know. And even an attitude about it, like, why are you asking me about this? Like, why is this my problem? And I'm just like, well, I don't you want to know this?
Mhm.
Like, I guess I would want to know this.
Right.
And I think too, getting back to the witch thing, these people were actually healing people. And I think even back then it was already starting with, how is this person healing this other person? And I think it was just, one family member after another taught
Yeah.
down the line, this is what works. I'm
Mhm.
sure there was some trial and error there,
Yes, absolutely.
but they were looking at the whole person. And then you look at, the medical doctors back then, they were using leeches and bleeding people and keeping them stuffed inside in the dark if they were pregnant with a bunch of incense burning. And they couldn't even get any fresh light or air, and it was
Yeah,
just
where
like,
did
oh
they
my
get that?
God.
Is
I
my
don't know.
wondering because my like intuitively, my thought with that is that they stole a lot of these remedies from the ancient cultures and then twisted it to what they wanted it to be. And science did start emerging after a time, right? Because people are afraid of what they don't know. So they
Right.
have to start doing the scientific work and stuff like that. So if back to the if you were a doctor, you had the paper, you were respected. We still have that today. But I feel like almost everything today was taken off of our history and changed to fit into a box. Everything is
Yeah.
changed into a box to something that is acceptable. And people don't even realize that what they're doing or saying or taking or whatever is actually stemmed from the woo quotation marks again. Yeah, it really did. It came from that. Everything came from that. It came from our ancient cultures. Even with energetic work, we're talking about kids got to go burn off energy. That is literally energetic work. It is a real thing, right? We say stuff every day. Oh, I got to trust my gut. Or that's intuitive stuff. Like just regular. Oh, I had a weird dream. It must mean this. That is the spiritual work. That is intuitive work. We have stuff incorporated in every single day. We don't even realize it. The only reason why we think it's acceptable to say those things is because we're unaware and somebody else said it was
Right.
along the way.
Right.
So people don't even know the stuff that they're spewing out of their mouth actually comes from this world. There's a lot of things. Yeah, it's just there's so much. There's so much that came from witches in that time frame and even before and beyond from the ancient cultures. They all knew stuff. And witches are just the ones that got the label because it was scary and put to rest. And
Right.
that has carried through hundreds and hundreds of years up until I feel like now, where everybody is really starting to wake up. And because we can't afford insurance, because we can't afford our medications, because we are starting to see the lies that have been told to us. Whether or not you are a conspiracy theorist or not, you can tell there's shit that you could see out there that is just
Oh
like
yeah.
right, right? We're starting to figure out that there's more to the scary side of stuff that we don't understand than what we think there is. And it
Right.
actually freaking works when you are and a lot of us are healers. And that's why we're drawn to it. Even if you don't know that you are a healer, there is something in you that has an interest in that, whether or not you want to let it come out, right? Thing in you, and you're having this tug and this pull and this hee haw with it, and you shut it down because it's scary. There's a reason that you have that feeling and that pull, and there's a reason why you're waking up right now towards that. There's reasons for it all. And I find it amazing. And our ancestors and all those women that were burned at the stake, I don't want that to be in vain.
Right. Isn't it amazing though how one idiot can write a book with and just freaking ruin everybody's lives? Just be like, hey, listen, I got a lie that I can figure out that I can get to a lot of people if I write this book
Yeah.
and it'll look real legit and let's just get it out there. And it's stuck for how long? I mean, we're still Halloween. I mean, we're still looking at witches as being this, scary cauldron,
Yeah.
making potions, concoctions, and, going to turn you into a rat or a bat.
Yeah, it's been made scary. And really, that's probably how it was before, but not in a scary way at all.
Right. Right. Yeah, they were making stuff to help people.
Right.
And I think a lot of them lived more of a solitary life because they knew a lot about nature.
Right. They knew energetics and how to protect their boundaries.
Yeah.
They knew what I would say is in this work, we all know that finding your peace is the key and protecting your energy is the key. They
Yep.
didn't let anybody into their own sacred little space because of that. They knew that.
Right.
They didn't like,
Oh, sorry.
huh?
I was gonna say they avoided people, and then the truck went by.
Oh,
Oh,
they did avoid people. And I suppose back then you still had to be careful. There were still people that were like, I don't know
oh
what,
yeah.
for the most part, it was acceptable. I mean, the further back in history you go, the more on a pedestal healers were. I mean, they were like,
So I was watching Harry Potter with Phoenix, and I've never watched it before, but I started watching it. It kind of makes sense that there's different families, like different branches of levels, which is probably it was then too. Like different families are into different things and poverty levels, and so I could see where it goes back way, way back. You know what I mean? How it just kind of keeps going, even with witches.
yep.
Have you
Too,
seen Harry Potter?
wouldn't you say too that they also knew how manifestations worked?
Yes.
Yeah.
You know
I
what I mean? Like it wasn't that they were doing anything necessarily special. They just knew how to work the energy around them. They knew that whatever you put out was going to come back around. You know what I mean?
So do you think there was a hidden message in Hogwarts and them separating
Ooh,
them and all the magic
probably.
behind it? And I think that would be really cool. Like they have them separated into almost the different categories of what you believe in and your money and all of this stuff, right? And your abilities. Your abilities. I wonder if that wasn't based upon some sort of something, something, and we're sitting
That's what I'm
here
saying.
like,
Like if it was different, like how you were treated. Like if your intuition is like you do numerology, you do astrology. Like if you're
yes,
higher up than what you are, and you know,
hmm,
like
People used to use
you're
astrologers
considered more
a lot.
evil than what you are.
yeah, heck yeah. So
Yeah.
I think there's possibly more meaning behind the Harry Potters, although it's very magical. I actually kind of want to
I
go
love
watch
Harry Potter.
it. Right?
I want to go hang out in Hogwarts for a while.
You know, the thing with bringing up Harry Potter and Hogwarts and magic and stuff like that, I believe in magic. Okay. So here's the thing. I feel like the magic in this world is the energy, is the manipulation of the energy, is how to manifest, is how to heal. The magic is being able to believe in something that just literally can deliver stuff on your doorstep, right? The exchange of healing powers. And not only that, but when I had my reading the other day, and she was talking about my great uncle Frank watching over me, and the fact that I felt him sit next to me. And I can't explain this feeling to everybody, but it's like sitting next to the most high powered static electricity thing that you can sit next to, where it's literally like pulling, right? That is what it felt like. How is that not magic? How is it not magic to be able to look at some cards and get messages? How is that not magic?
Right.
Right?
How many times have you pulled different cards and gotten that same, you like, I swear to God, they change as I'm pulling them.
Yeah.
You
Yeah.
know, like how do they know that? But only that, but I think too is unlike Harry Potter, and I think why people dismiss it as coincidence or whatever, is that these magical things that happen, these manifestations in our lives, which is basically magic, right? If you want to just switch the words around, it doesn't happen instantaneously, right? So
It's
you
not
got to be a little more patient than you would be in the Harry Potter land, right?
Yeah, you got to be patient. And it's never, that's the thing. Like a lot of people think that when you're doing intuitive stuff or you're manifesting or you're doing any of this crap, right, that it's some big, huge experience. And it's not. It's not. Even like when I'm doing my reading stuff, it's so natural. It doesn't feel like I'm doing anything different. It's not like some big thing happens. And that's why we miss our intuition, by the way. That's why we miss it because it isn't. I mean, I've had like that experience the other day with my Uncle Frank. That was magic for me. That was instantaneous in the moment. Holy shit, right? And we all have those moments if we're open to it, but it's not, I'm going to pull this rabbit out of the hat and give you instantaneous magical woo! You know what I mean? There's not sparklers and firecrackers happening, but it's still magic. It
So I
happens.
want to share a really big manifestation that I had.
Yeah.
Okay, so I think I've told you this, Kayla. So before I moved down here, well, actually, most of my adult life, I did not have my own vehicle. Just didn't, never could afford it. After my divorce, I pretty much lost my ass, right? Lost the vehicle and the divorce, all that kind of stuff. And I didn't really have a lot of help in the areas that I probably could have used it. And so I was stuck in a really kind of crummy situation. And I thought, well, I've got to be able to have a car because there's no way I'm going to be able to do anything in my life that I want to do without this coming into my life first. And I didn't know how it was going to happen, but I just believed it was going to happen. I was going to get a car. I didn't know how it was going to manifest, but I was trying to manifest it. And as I kept that positive attitude and didn't go down a deep, dark hole, a lot of different things were starting to manifest. People in my lives were starting to show up in my life that were a big help. Um, but the biggest thing is that a friend of mine had moved back. Her mother had passed away. And I had been helping her a little bit get through that and just spending time, you know, and listening to her and helping her out with a sibling. And one day we were in her car, she had picked me up and we were going to go grocery shopping. to buy some food for a meal that we were going to have at her house as a get together. And she's like, "Oh, I really want to get rid of my car and I want to get a new car." And I said, "Oh, you should. You should get a new car. You deserve a new car." And she's like, "You want to go to Culver's?" I said, "Yeah." So we go to Culver's and we went through the drive-through. We were sitting in her car and we were talking. And she goes, "Kim, I want you to have this car." I remember I was eating, and I was just like, "Are you what?" Like, like, what are you saying to me? Did I hear you right? And she's like, she started to cry, and she goes, I want you to have this car. Her husband and her are going to be buying another car, and they have been discussing it for months, apparently, about what they wanted to do with this existing vehicle. And she's like, we just decided that we want you to have it. Charge me nothing for this vehicle. And I was just like, oh my God. And so, I mean, I couldn't believe it. I just couldn't believe it. And that is the car I have today. I am forever grateful for her. And I didn't know how it was going to happen. And I certainly did not expect that to happen.
Right?
But I was just like, holy shit, like this actually works. I mean, I was just more amazed at the fact that I can't believe that this happened. I didn't know how it was going to happen, but it happened. A whole freaking car.
And that's the magic. That's a surrender of it. That is the
Right.
faith that it's gonna happen. And it does. It does happen. The only we just get in our own way. That's it.
Yeah.
Is we get in our own way. The magic is there. And that's like the perfect example. And I fucking love it. I love it.
And it was weird because little things started happening prior to that, even like being in a drive-through and having somebody pay for your meal
Mhm.
ahead of you. I was like, oh my God, it's happening. Right. Like, I got really excited about it too. And I think that also is something that has to be said is that if these things happen and you're just like, meh,
It's not
meh, right? It's never going to go any further than that. If you ignore these things and you don't say, oh my God, thank you, universe. Thank you for bringing this to me because gratitude will get you far.
oh, yes, it will. Absolutely. Yes. And it shifts your whole perspective.
Oh, yeah. You can't be depressed if you're grateful. You can't really be upset if you're grateful. And I've learned that even too with certain situations like today, getting stressed out about something and just going, all right, I can either sit in this or I can move forward into something that I feel grateful about,
Right.
right? To be a part of and just not panic. Right? Because you can't focus on the panic if you're focusing on something that you're grateful for.
Yeah. And that's true. And being in the moment, because when you're panicking, you're in the future, you're in the past, right?
Right.
I just had this conversation last night with one of my clients about how we actually have the ability to bend time. I did a year-long Reiki course and we talked about this. We have the ability to do that. When you are actually in the moment and really in the moment and not letting your mind drift either way, time almost seems like it stands still. So you're rushing around and you're doing all these things, and oh my God, I'm not going to have enough time. I can't, there's no way I'm going to be able to make it somewhere on time, right? And people are driving really, really slow in front of you and all this stuff, and you're freaking out about it. Freaking out. How am I going to do that? You're late. And I have personally tried this numerous times, and it works every time. Okay, I'm in the car at this moment. Everything is fine. There's nothing I can do about the traffic. There's nothing I can do about me getting there any faster, right? I'm just going to be here in this moment and look at the things that I can enjoy in this moment. Hey, I have a moment for myself. I can calm down in this moment. I can listen to my favorite song in this moment. This is buying me a little bit more time to enjoy something. And I shit you not, every time I do that, I get to where I'm going on time. No
Right.
matter
And plus,
if
too,
it should be impossible, it happens. Yeah.
I think sometimes when we get kind of set off course, there's a reason for that. Like when we were driving home that one night, I think there was a definite reason for that.
Yeah.
So, I mean, we got delayed, right? But it probably kept us from a bigger shitstorm, like going through something worse. So,
Yeah. And giving gratitude, like, okay, I recognize the sign. You're keeping me safe. You know, you got to be on the lookout for that stuff.
right.
You get
And not
more.
getting mad about it, but like you said, being grateful for it.
And you get more and you get more and you get more of that. And then you like people always say, "Oh, the people in the spiritual world are always so happy and love and light and la la la," because we see it. We are
Right.
grateful because the universe has been giving us stuff, but we also realize how hard the hard times are.
Mhm. Well,
You're
too,
like
even
battle.
like praying. I think a lot of people are thinking, oh, you pray for things, right? Like, oh, I'm going to pray for God to pay my water bill, right? No. I think what praying actually is, this is just my opinion about it, is sitting down and being grateful. Like the whole thing where, that's kind of been lost now is where a whole family sits down around a dinner and is and prays about how grateful they are for that food. Thank God, thank you, universe, for this animal sacrificing that we sacrifice to eat,
Hmm.
to nourish our bodies. Thank you so much. And then I think you get more. You get more. You're not, your cupboards aren't so bare when you're actually grateful for what you're eating. I definitely think there's a lot of things that we should get back to as a society just to generate more good things coming our way. Instead of being in this mindset that we've all kind of really gotten into throughout the decades of just being in a mindset of lack all the time and always trying to keep up with the Joneses and
Yes.
never really appreciating what you already have and always looking at somebody else and thinking that the grass is greener instead of watering your own grass and making it beautiful.
Right. And that's exactly it. It's always keeping up with the Joneses. It's always, oh, I got this. Now I have to obtain the next thing. We have all been taught that sitting and relaxing is being lazy. You cannot sit and just enjoy a moment. That is lazy. You always have to be out being productive, doing things. And the 1 degree that you have is not enough. You have to go get another. And you have to
Right.
get another and another and another. Like we're always thinking the next best thing is going to fix something and make it better when really the moment you are in this moment, this very moment is what is going to make it better. Your
Right.
yourself, your thought process, your gratitude, all of that. And it really is that simple. And that's
Right.
what people are like, no, it can't work that way. It can't be that simple. It is. It really, really is. The work to get there is hard, right? Here, mentally, spiritually, all of that. It's not easy, right? But when you start having that faith and start leaning into that and start having the gratitude and being in the moment, it happens for you faster and faster and faster. And it happens at like it's consistent, right? The consistency starts coming in and the light in your life starts looking a lot different. And it really is that freaking easy. You just got to have an ounce of patience. You have to be able to take a good hard look at yourself, first of all.
Yeah. Yeah.
You need to look at yourself, right? Go stand in front of that mirror. And if you got to say, oh shit, that's what you got to do, right? And then you pick yourself up and you start working on the things and start finding your answers and your reasonings behind everything. You start getting in alignment. The universe starts seeing you're getting in alignment. Your gratitude, shit's happening so fast. And it is that easy. It
I
is.
think, yeah, I think there really is something to say about shadow work, about really looking at yourself and saying, okay, I think I might be the problem, right?
Yes.
Like I think there's some shit that I've stuffed down that it wasn't so pretty that I don't want to look at, that I really have to look at and be accountable for and, recognize so I don't keep on doing this cycle over and over and over again. And in anyways, for me, I think that really is what was the catalyst for me, is that I had gotten down to the absolute bottom. I think my life is over. This is just it. I'm going to be trapped in hell. And I was alone all the time, right? And I was just trapped in my body. This was after I had all the failed surgeries, and it was just crying every day. And I was stuck having to face a lot of things that even happened in my past, and making a lot of peace with different things. Even like with family, I actually sat down and really thought about different things that happened in my life and why they happened, and looked at the bigger picture instead of trying to zero in on, well, this wasn't right and this wasn't fair and this should have never happened. It was like, okay, with more of an understanding and a clarity about it. I think it really helped me a lot to get out of that total like victim state. Like why is this all happening to me? Well, this is why it's happening to you.
You can't be a
You
victim.
know? Right. And so you either accept that and take some, control over this yourself.
Yeah. You switch from
And
victim to survivor. When you switch to
right,
survivor, that's where it is.
right,
Mhm.
right. And like we had talked about too, like all these things that happen to you really are the things that are propelling you into your purpose, even though they suck and they're maybe not very pleasant or they can be awful. I mean, some people really go through some awful, awful shit in the first halves of their lives where it's just like, I can't believe you went through that. How did you get through that?
Right.
But it doesn't have to be something that is stuck with you forever. I believe it's meant to be there, unfortunately, right? Is maybe
Our
that
first
sounds
half of our
shitty,
lives. It's meant.
but right, but it definitely propels you to do something that you're meant to do. And like in my regard, I really believe that it's meant for me to help other people that have been through that other shit. And I think that really is what it is. It's like, okay, these were your lessons. Let me help you wake up now too.
Yeah,
Let me help you get well, or here's the information that I've learned, and let me share it with you. I think if you try to keep that to yourself, then you're not sharing your purpose.
absolutely. I 100% agree. And a lot of us, I feel like when we step into this work, even though we can be really quiet, a lot of us do actually crave making a big difference.
Mm-hmm.
We really do. Like, oh, I don't want all the fame. I don't want all the fame. But deep down, I feel like a lot of us are like, no, I am here to make a difference. I want to make this big difference. I want to do the things and I want to make people happy and healthy. And I want to share my experience with them. And we're all coded numerology. We're all coded already to the people we need to be with to do these things, right? And it's a chain reaction. Do, 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 do. It happens. And so, yeah, if you can get a
Right,
victim and into survivor, and unfortunately, like you said, our early lives, we live in our karma. It's supposed to happen, right?
right,
Because otherwise, if we didn't have bad stuff happen to us, we'd be living in light and bliss all the time and we would be selfish MFs.
right. And I think we've all been dicks, right? We've all been dicks in our lives, right? We've all done something shitty to somebody, right? It's and I think once you own that too, that also is a great awakening. You know what I mean? That it wakes you up and it's like, yeah, okay, I was a shit. I mean, even the stories about Jesus, he was a dick at one time. I mean, he was, he did talk about it. He was kind of a butthead.
Yeah, that's the truth.
Right?
You wouldn't wake up. And that's the beauty of it. When you wake up and you start seeing the sun shining on your face, oh man, it's so beautiful. And is it like that all the freaking time? No. But
No.
it's not supposed to be because otherwise you wouldn't appreciate those brilliant moments that do happen. And you're supposed to treasure those moments. Yes.
Right.
It's just the
You have
way,
to have that contrast in order to appreciate all of it.
right. And I feel like these witchy people from hundreds and hundreds of years ago, they really knew. They really, really knew. And actually wanted to do some magical, mathematical numerology things about what happened then, like the dates and everything then, compared to what is happening now, because I feel like there's a correlation. I think it was a 9 year that stuff happened.
Well,
And
too, I mean, even like with what you do, right? I mean, you definitely would have been burned at the stake.
oh hell yeah. Well actually I was waterboarded from what I was told. I was one of the women that they tortured to try to get me to confess. And so they waterboarded me to death. I
See?
would confess.
Right. So, I mean, like anybody that had that tapped into their intuitive abilities and helped other people with that, they were, well, they were murdered. So,
Yeah. And they want, I think, when I was being told about my past life and this stuff like that, I think what was happening was they also wanted me to give up names, and I don't think I would. I was like, you fuckers are gonna kill me anyway, so
all right.
you might as well just follow through with it. Let's just hang out until it's done. Let's just get the thing done. Okay? Okay.
But I think too, a witch is somebody that's not only a healer, but somebody that has an awareness that there's more to it than what we actually see. And they are tapped into nature. I mean, look at how birds know how to fly south, right? Nobody told them that, right? They don't take a course on traveling about like this is, where you have to go. There's no maps. They just follow the magnetic grid of the earth and go where they need to go. And I think these people were just extremely tapped into nature, extremely tapped in.
You know, I just got the chills all over my body as you're talking about this. Like, oh my gosh. We have been talking about the neurospicy and the intuition. This has been up
Mhm.
front and center in even a lot of my sessions, right?
Oh, I think I know where you're going with this.
Now, a lot of the neurospicy people like to be alone. They're seen as different, right? And outsiders. A lot of the healers back then were seen as different and outsiders. A lot of us have, with this frontal lobe stuff, an ability to tap in very strongly, right? So what if that's what was making them different?
I like where you're going with this. I like it.
A lot of times they were seen as different sorts of people, that there was
Right.
wasn't just quite right, whatever, right? What if they
They
were
definitely were more empathic, and I do think that as somebody that, with somebody that has ADHD or ADD, they definitely pick up on patterns really quickly,
Want to
right?
know
They
what my
they
neuro spicy kid just did?
what?
So I bought candy for my Halloween party I'm having,
Uh-huh.
and I put this candy inside a pillowcase, inside a footstool, in the garage. Like it's junk, okay? No one seen me do this. I did it right before we went grocery shopping. We came home. I gave him bread to go put into the freezer. He fucking took the candy out of there. Mind blown. Never has he didn't know where this candy was. I'm like, are you kidding me right
You
now?
sure did know where that candy was.
Yep. So how do I know? How like I've hidden movies, he has found them. How can I tell? Like, how is he gonna can he tell me? Can like I want to know he's reading my mind and where I'm putting shit because this is getting ridiculous.
Yeah, intuitive. I'm telling you,
right?
they observe,
I
they
know.
feel, they
It's
hear, they get it. They get like
like
all of
I want
it.
candy. Zoom.
Yeah. And their guides are
Yeah.
probably like, hey, we're gonna show you where it is.
I
The other
don't know where
thing
to
I'm
put it
curious
anymore. I
about,
don't know where to put anything, Kayla.
the other thing I'm curious about too is that I notice a lot of my friends that also have ADHD have seen ghosts.
Yes.
And the ones that are not that way are like, I've never seen that, you're crazy.
Yeah.
Right? Like you guys are nuts. And it's like, I don't so I think you're onto something, Kayla. I really do. I think maybe our brains are programmed to be a little bit more in touch with things that
Yes.
the neurotypical people just aren't.
It's a gift. Everybody says, oh no, 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 there's something wrong. And this goes back to
Yep.
I think thousands of years ago when they were trying to control us, hundreds of years ago, whatever. There's something wrong with you if you have this. I don't think back then there was. I think they thought of ADHD and all this stuff as a gift, as a
Right.
reason why you had this stuff.
It's because you were touched by the devil.
Right. See, back to the witch trials. Yeah, you were
Right.
You were touched by the devil because you weren't a Quaker. I don't know. You didn't follow what everyone else did.
right. And
Humana,
And
humana, humana, humana.
different.
two, all these people that were really like think about the astrologers and I mean they had to take a deep dive into these things, right? So they had to be really obsessed with it in order to I mean,
The numbers, the calculations,
yeah,
that goes on. But yeah, if you were touched by the devil and you were different and you were, because I had,
Well, and that's why I try and be really careful talking to my kids even now. Because like some example, when Bellery, like she's like
I love that name.
I was going to school and she said something about the kids being really weird. And I said, whoa, whoa, whoa. I said, what's weird? I said, define weird. I said, because you could be weird. I said, I said, I don't know weird. I said, weird. I said, what's weird? I said, there's different things for weird because something great like, you know, Van Gogh was weird. You know what I
Right.
mean? Like
Right.
way back when things were weird. I feel like people always describe very unique, interesting things as weird.
Yes.
That word just bothers me a lot. Like weird.
Weird is
And
something that makes you
I
uncomfortable.
take it as a compliment.
Oh, hell yeah.
I've been
Yeah.
called that my
well, and
entire
that's what I'm
life from my
saying. Like she's
family. You
like,
are so weird. I'm just like, yeah, I am. Thanks. I don't
no,
want to
that's
be
why she was
like
like,
everybody else.
that's why I told her because she was like the weird kids. I'm like, whoa, 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 wait, like describe weird. Like, what's weird to you? I'm like, because weird. I said, my hair's weird. I said, people could think it's weird. I said, so what is actually weird? I said, because use your words. I said, if they're not being nice, I said, then they're not being nice. I said,
Mhm.
you can't just say weird for everything.
I wouldn't say like you call somebody weird. I would say I would call events weird, right? Like, oh, that's weird that that happened. But I wouldn't say that the way somebody looks is weird or, stuff like that.
Unique.
It's unique. It's
Yeah,
somebody, but we have to have a label for everything in society. So if it's not, it's something that makes you uncomfortable, well, therefore it's weird. But I think the word weird technically is supposed to describe more events that happen or like odd things that happen to you, right? Like, oh,
yeah.
this doesn't
Well,
make sense.
that's like what I tried telling her. Like,
Yeah,
no, don't not weird. Let's not use weird for everything.
right. Hi, bud. Are you
Yeah, and I
moving?
think weird sometimes keeps us trapped and not doing the things that we want to do or looking the way that we want to look, or holding us back. I know, like for myself, having an older sister that's 10 years older than me who was very much what you would consider a 1980s preppy girl, right? Oh, very much into labels and that kind of thing. And then to have this younger sister who was totally against all that kind of stuff, right? So I was shopping at St. Vinny's because I wanted to shop at St. Vinny's, right? Because I thought it was cool. Um, and getting into all this woo-woo stuff and just constantly being called weird. I'd rather be weird than be cookie cutter like everybody else. And I'm drawn to the weird. I'm drawn to those people that are thinking outside of the box that, are like, hey, can you believe this happened? Or just to get their perspective on things because it's interesting.
Oh, yeah, it is. Heck yeah, that's why I want to do this because we all have weird little minds, right?
Exactly. I
You know
love
what?
this group.
You know what's interesting is that when I dress completely how I want to, like I did yesterday, completely how I want to, there's like people either look at you like they're scared of you, or they're like looking through your soul, or men look at you like, huh, wonder what that's like. Like you can see
Wait,
how guys look at
and
you.
two, do you notice
And
the
like,
ones that actually make a negative comment? Like, for instance, I had been out to dinner with an acquaintance of mine, and this acquaintance had said no, noticed an older lady that happened to be, I think, probably in her 60s, maybe early 70s, with purple hair, right?
yep,
And my acquaintance said, "Oh, that looks ridiculous." And my
yep,
first thought was, I bet you wish that you could have the balls to do that yourself.
yep.
You know what I mean? Because is it that it offends you, or does it offend something in you that makes you feel like you're stuck not being who you want to be?
See, now, I've never had people like say anything like negative about my hair. I'm sure they do it to each other. I've had one like couple look at me and like snicker to each other and like laugh. Um, but that's because I didn't like because I'm white and you could tell. You know what I mean? Like you could
Why should it matter what color you
because
are
I
if
have
you want
dread.
to have
Because I have
dreads in
dread.
your hair?
Yep. But yeah, but you can tell because I'm different than everyone else. You can just see the looks you get from people. So I could imagine back then how
Right?
horrible it was.
Yeah, if you were just slightly different in that, and then
Oh my
Yeah.
God, yeah.
I wonder why they were in the woods.
yeah,
Right? They're like, I'm getting the hell away from these people. They're too much.
yeah, and they
And they
can,
I
probably
just
wore
need to be me.
black. They probably wore black so people wouldn't notice them. Like if I were black, you can't see me. I'm in the shadows.
Mhm. Yeah,
Well, too, I think they understood like color and energy too, as well.
Yeah.
That goes with that too.
Mhm.
But yeah, I think a lot of times that people just project their own insecurities onto other people who are just more free.
Yeah.
Absolutely. That's where all this mass hysteria comes from. That's
Yeah,
that's what happened now. It's all stuff people are afraid of. They either don't understand it or they're afraid of what other people are going to think.
right,
Because instead of just like I had posted in my group, really reading or watching the video, The Art of Not Giving a Fuck. It's a good, I mean, it's kind of cheesy, but it's the information that is there is so great. And that's what we all need to go back to. And I think
right,
that's probably what we'll leave as a closer for this is really go watch that, right? Go watch The Art of Not Giving a Fuck because that is what everybody needs in society right now.
right.
Need.
Yeah, I
Let's
think
have weed.
I think we
Let's have
definitely are
Wednesday and
the
watch it.
modern day witches.
You what?
I said I think we definitely are the modern day witches as
Oh
far
yeah.
as like the people that are just kind of like, you know what? I'm gonna take a deep dive into this woo-woo world, right? And start listening to what my intuition and start understanding that, it's okay to get into different things that maybe not collectively everybody else is into, right?
The thing is too, is that all of us have this innate need inside of us to isolate and want to live off
Yeah,
the woods. It's still in us. It is
yeah,
still in us. I just want to be with my family in the woods, doing my own thing, being with nature. Every single person that I've met that has been a healer has had some sort of connection with that. Something.
yeah,
Just want to protect my peace. I want peace. I want peace and quiet. All of us. And we just want to be who we are. That is it.
right.
We all have our quirky little things, and it's not weird. I think it's beautiful.
I think it is too.
Yeah,
Just don't burn me at a stake. I don't want to take a hold that way.
right. And like Sarah with
Don't
her,
drown me. Don't waterboard me.
Sarah, I don't think you get negative comments about your hair because you exude, like it just comes out of you, the confidence, right? Like it's just the thing. It's the confidence that comes out, and the universe is like, nah, we're not gonna let people come and burst your bubble. It's just not gonna happen because you're in it. You're the
Yeah,
universe, the
Oh
living.
no, I get lots of positive, lots of compliments.
Yeah,
Yesterday there was some guy in a mask at Aldi's. He was like following me around all over. And I looked at him and he's like, I really like your hair. I'm
yeah,
like a mask, like like a COVID mask. Like he was wearing like he was a mask. And I was like, thanks. Yeah.
yeah. So when you're rocking your own you, the universe is like, yeah, here you go. Here's a thing.
right.
Don't
Yeah.
be,
Stepping into your confidence.
don't be afraid. So, all right, it is 11:30. We went over time.
Oh,
So we could talk for days, honestly. We could talk for days and days and days on this. But if anybody else is listening or watching, go watch that movie, go read the book. Look into the witch stuff if you want to a little bit. Start connecting your own dots. It's really amazing. If anybody ever calls you an old hag again, say thank you.
thank you very much.
Calls you a crone, absolutely. I appreciate that. I appreciate you. Thank you. Or a witch. Somebody calls you a witch, absolutely. Take it. Take it as a compliment. They may look at you funny, but just be like, you're damn right. All right, guys. I will talk to you all later, and I hope you have a great rest of your Sunday.
You too. Bye, Sarah. Bye,
You
Kayla.
too. Bye.
Bye bye.
Bye.